Cruise Control, where we navigate the roadways of life, business, and everything in between. Hey guys, it's Kevin Davis from the Cruise Control Podcast. This is episode number 41. I am here with Erik Devash. Devash, right? Or is it Devash?
Oh, they both sound perfect, actually.
Devash. I'm going to read Erik's bio because I think it's really informative. It's a couple paragraphs, so we'll get this thing done. Erik's dedication to leveraging technology for efficiency and growth played a pivotal role in the rapid expansion of one of the fastest growing tint companies, Window Tint LA, which he founded in 2014, March 2014. By 2018, the company had soared to over $3 million in annual sales. Congrats on that. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Then he sold it. After selling Window Tint LA in December of 2018, he turned his attention to the business management software that had been instrumental in his company's success. Introduced this powerful tool to the wider market as the Tint Wiz app, a CRM and project management platform specifically tailored for window tint and PPF businesses, business practices such as booking, appointments, generating estimates, sending invoices, scheduling jobs, and managing tasks. Erik continues to contribute to the industry's growth through the app and his podcast, Tint Wizdom, W-I-Z, and he's got his Tint Wiz shirt on. Interesting. You have a business degree and an MBA, which I think is super cool. I don't think that we see that that much on in sort of some of these blue collar type industries, right? Like that's kind of a rare thing. But hey, thanks for coming on board. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
So that's a super long intro, longer than normal, but I wanted to kind of set the stage for the audience, kind of who I'm talking to. One of the big questions I always ask on this podcast is I ask for kind of this superhero backstory. You know, if we're superheroes in whatever industry we're in, everybody has a backstory. So I'm curious kind of your progression and how you got. I know there's some IT stuff back there, some programming stuff. And I was talking to a guy this morning about kind of the way our paths work in life and kind of going back and seeing those things. So if you will, run through some of that for us.
Yeah. So going way back as a small child, I just kind of looked forward to being able to get in the workforce. I just looked forward to being old enough to be able to work and earn money. It was something that I was like counting down the day, that and being able to buy a car, but working would come first, obviously. So my first job was at a grocery store, but while I was working there at 15, I discovered eBay at the time. And eBay, this was 25 years ago, literally. eBay was just really getting the ball rolling. And what really like struck me was, as a 15/16-year-old at the time, that I could potentially do business, and I could do business on eBay without anybody knowing that I was under 18, without like needing a store, without needing an official business. Even you didn't need to register an actual business back then, even as a business. So I got started selling on eBay. I quit my job at the grocery store, and I spent through college building an eBay business that went from car parts into electronics and so on. And that was really when I came up with I realized for myself that what I enjoyed doing was whatever I was doing essentially in business. Like business was what I enjoyed doing. It didn't have to be a specific business. In college, I ended up meeting someone that their business was call centers, which was strange to me, because coming from somebody who worked from home and had this online business, I met somebody who had a business with a big office and 20, 30 people, and it just seemed strange. It seemed very intriguing to me. And I ended up getting into that business as well. So I gained about 5 years experience in a call center dealing with, basically cold calling out using dialers, using scripts. So scripting was my first introduction to scripting and how important a consistent script and rebuttals are. And then to handle customers, and then also my first introduction to a CRM. So CRM was an integral part of keeping track of all the people that were called and why they maybe didn't talk to you or what they did purchase and so on. And, the CRM at the time was complicated enough that I had an admin person that I would just, ask questions to, and they would get me whatever I needed out of it. Mm-hmm. It was one of those scenarios. Moving from there, I took the experience that I had in the eBay days and online forums and got back into online marketing, started offering that to other businesses, opened up an office in Marina Del Rey, California, offering it primarily to dentists and so on. And from there, when I was in California, I thought, what better way to get a friend of mine that I had been working with in Florida, with his window tint company to come out than starting a window tint website to generate leads. And then I would imagine, fulfill those leads. And basically we started trying to sell the leads. No luck at all. Nobody was the least bit interested in buying window tint leads at the time, which I think has changed. And it was one of those moments we went to a shop that we kind of knew, and the guy couldn't have been less interested. Like, he was like displeasured with our offer. And it was just kind of one of those moments where I turned to my partner at the time and I said, why don't we just fulfill these ourselves? Why don't we just, we did. We hired somebody. It was as simple as hiring somebody, putting an ad on Craigslist for a window tinter that wanted to work part-time, that just wanted per job basis. They came into my marketing office. I had them frost the windows so I could see their quality. Next thing you knew, we had an installer, we had the leads, and we started fulfilling the jobs. And that year, a death in the family called me back to Florida. So now we had this starting business, operating it remotely, which put more pressure on the systems. And the systems were using email, using like a iCalendar, Google shared docs to spreadsheets and so on. And that was when I realized, we need a CRM. And, because I had the experience with the CRM in the past, and, started building up a CRM alongside our business just to solve our problems. It was never even an inkling of a thought of a product that I would offer to the public. We solved our problems, like scheduling problems, because obviously, like, you have to be super efficient in LA when you're scheduling travel because of traffic and so on, making it easy for installers to be able to just go complete the jobs and come back, accept payments, being able to quote jobs on the spot and so on. These are all things that, quoting a flat glass job on the spot isn't necessarily that easy, especially if you want to do something beyond pen and paper. Maybe you give them pen and paper on the spot, which we did. Then we would go back and type up an Excel proposal that could be 20, 30 minutes. And once you send it off, you could get a reply that was, well, can you show me just the kitchen, just with this film and this and that? So many different options. And 4 years of building out the CRM to solve our own problems, I just had that another kind of epiphany moment where I said, I absolutely love the impact the software is having. And I love how the kind of problems that we can solve with it. How can I spend more time there? And I felt like, the move was get rid of the day-to-day so I could focus 100% on the software and introducing it to the public. And that's what we did. We sold the company at the end of 2018 to one of our local competitors, Solar Art. And from there, spent about a year transitioning the software to be something that could be used by the general public. And then from there, here we are. That's been about 4 years.
Yeah.
That's what I do now.
I mean, I think we talk a lot about, and I've talked about this in my own content for over a decade, and I had this conversation a couple of days ago. It doesn't really matter what industry you're in. If you have the business and marketing side, you could pretty much do anything, right? Like, it doesn't really matter as long as you're kind of interested. And I think you're a perfect example of that, because essentially the way I would boil it down is you're a businessman and a marketer. Right. Like, those are kind of the biggest things that you do. And how do I'm curious and I want to get deeper into all of that, but what advice do you give to people to say, hey, you're a good tinter, you're good at flat glass, you're good at, automotive and all of that, but you're not great at business? Like, what advice do you give to those people? Because I know what advice I give in my different industries, but I'm curious how you handle that.
So first and foremost, I think it's important for that person to try to imagine what they want their future to look like. Could be 5 years out, I think is a fair future. And maybe then you look at 10 years if you can try to imagine. But I like the 5-year mark. Try to look at what your future is going to look like. And then, my advice is trying to identify the parts of business that you need to get better at to get you there, and then realize that you can get better at it. And the first step probably is spending some time and learning those things. So when you said, like, that I'm a marketer, yes, because I identified early on that marketing is an absolutely key component to driving a business. It's the gas pedal, it's the steering wheel, it's able to get things moving when you say and when you want, being able to press the gas further down when you need and release off of it when you don't, and being able to steer yourself the direction you want to go in. Because without marketing, you're kind of just, in my opinion, in the wind. You may get customers, you may not. You may sell the services you're most interested in, you may not, and so on. So marketing is a key component. So, if somebody wants to learn, like Google Ads, for example, or they say, I want ads, how can I hire the best company to run my ads? My opinion is the start is just start watching some videos about Google Ads and maybe open up a Google Ads account, and don't set it at $100 a day budget or $1,000 a month budget. Just set it up and don't even maybe run it. Just go in and say, how do I create an ad, and create the ad. And it doesn't have to be running. It's kind of like, I feel like, I don't know how popular it is now, but when I was in college, it was part of the course, but you would set up a stock account, but it wasn't real money. And that is okay. It doesn't have to be real money for your skin to be in the game. And just get familiar with Google Ads and get familiar with how they work and what they look like and so on. And whether you end up running your ads yourself or you hire a company to do it, you have the foundation to understand what the company's doing. Are they a good company? Are things working? And so on. So being able to realize you're not going to fix those business problems by continuing to do what you're doing. You need to just start learning. And a year from now, you'll be a year ahead of the people who didn't start learning. And to kind of tag that, because I feel like it's kind of an obvious question, is, well, how do you make space as a busy business owner to learn this stuff? Because you're so busy as it is now, you're looking to take things off of your plate, not add to your plate. And I would say, first of all, take advantage of the slow times, because when it's slow is when you can be doing it. You can also stretch yourself at night. I get it. Sleep is important, but so is this. So for a short period of time, there's nothing wrong with staying up all night and diving into things. And then the third one is trying to make financial space for you to do that. So, throughout the year when things are busy, really tucking away money and really not getting too excited about spending that money in hopes that it's going to help your business, and just knowing that having that money in your bank account as oxygen for your business and for yourself is what can really help your business and your mental state as well.
Yeah, that cash flow is king, right? Having the cash to be able to do the things that you want to do and need to do, and all that makes
and maybe
a big
just
difference.
having the cash and not spending it is the point.
Right?
It really can help you, right? Because you can always spend it, but keeping it helps make it too. Sometimes.
Sometimes, having it, and what a lot of people do, and I've heard this advice, is you have a certain amount that you want to keep in reserve. And once you have that reserve, then if it gets above that reserve, then you can, use that amount over the reserve, but don't touch the reserve, because then that adds a sense of,
exactly.
That keeps a little bit more confidence in that. In terms, you grew your business very, very quickly. I'm curious if did you have an exit plan in mind? When, did you set out saying, okay, I'm going to start this business, I'm interested in tint? Can you walk me through that? Because someone may be listening to this and say, man, I really want to start a new tint business, flat glass, detailing, automotive, mechanics, any of those things. How did that progression work for you? And I do want to say, the interesting thing about what you were just talking about with marketing is that even at 15, 16, when you were doing eBay listings, you're selling, right? You have to, and that's almost like a cold call, because you have a script that's written as the product description that has to sell that product, and then your pictures. But I'm curious kind of how you walk through that process with your tint business in particular.
Sure. And one of the things I learned with that eBay business, at one point, I was basically buying most of what I was selling on eBay. So I was looking at brand new listings and poorly described listings, and at the time with bad photos, simply buying that item, writing a better description, taking better photos, and selling it for more money. And that made it clear that, like how you present something may be obvious, but how you present something is a big part of if people are interested in it or not. As far as
did you drop ship from there? Like, or did you actually take delivery and then ship it out from there?
I was taking delivery and shipping it right back out. Most of the time, or a lot of the time in the same packaging it even came, I'd reuse the bubble wrap and like so on. I would just pack it nicer and like, because it just made sense. And I feel like I took some of that into Window Tint. So, the driving force behind trying to grow it so quickly is just the love for business. I feel like, in essence, you can see if you do this amount a week, it's going to be that amount a month. It's going to be that amount a year. So that means I can predict the rest of my life, essentially, if we go at that route. So wanting to rev that up and change that final endpoint, or that yearly or 10 years, or where am I going to be in 20 years and so on, was kind of a daily driving force. And one of the things that helped us really accomplish that, I think, was really focusing on what is our biggest bottleneck right now? What is our biggest problem, and solving it. So, when we had one consultant and they were getting booked out 3 or 4 weeks, it was very clear that we needed to be able to either hire another consultant and train them, or get that consultant to be more efficient so that they could do double the amount in a day. So that would bring, and essentially we focused on both. So it was an aggressive solving of problems, like hiring admins. A lot of times, maybe you're answering the phones yourself, or you're hiring one admin, and we instantly hired 3 admins, because hiring one admin is a person who can get busy and overwhelmed quickly. If they're out, that brings you to 0. If they get sick, that's 0. If they quit, that's 0. If you need to hire another one, you're starting with 0. But with 3, they learn from each other. They rotate. It starts to build a culture and so on. It would serve as a way to help with marketing, because we had them also blogging when they weren't answering phones. So one of the ways we would train the admins was, their first step was going into a project from the previous week, learning about it, Googling the product, and writing a blog post about it with the pictures. And once they did that, they had a fundamental understanding of what we were doing as a business, what the products were. We could then have them start answering emails. Then we could start having them answer the phones with somebody that can obviously take over the phones, and so on. And that progression, kind of helped level up. It helped our marketing. It helped our culture. It helped us being able to throw anything at them for them to relieve bottlenecks. And it helped them basically be able to help the customer in a way that other window tint companies weren't having. So a typical experience that still happens today is you maybe call somebody to get a quote. They come out, and then maybe you call back and you have some questions, and now you're waiting on a phone call from that person at the end of their busy day, or maybe a day later, or maybe an email 3 days later, and so on, where what we were able to provide was that admin had insight into the project, they had knowledge on the products, and they were able to answer the question, hopefully overcome the question, and maybe schedule that installation. And, it accelerated our business. We were just out doing what other people were offering. We were showing up in a wrapped vehicle, in uniforms. Our first answer is yes, we want to get it done. Can you get this job done tomorrow? Yes. Can you get out here today? Yes. Let's figure it out. And that yes mentality really, I think, provided a level of service for our customers, and that growth and having the systems in place allowed us to provide a better experience for our staff, which also helped. One of the bigger problems is, how do I hire installers? And we were grabbing installers left and right, because when we would bring installers over, they were happy to be here. We would load them with work, and they would go, hey, this is a lot. Why don't I get so-and-so from the company I used to work at to help me with this job? And it just started, providing a great place to work is the best way to get new employees. So,
for sure.
But the exit plan wasn't there. The plan was essentially to take over the world, right? Like to be the biggest and the best and take over the absolute world. There is no real company that if you said, name a window tint company, you went to every state, they would name the same one. That doesn't exist. I thought that could be me. But at some point I realized, the day-to-day stuff was awesome, but the impact that the software and technology could make was like just a more exciting venture.
Yeah,
So
that's a little bit
happened.
about like following your passion, right? Like if you're anything like me, I have a bunch of brands and businesses and all that. It's the creation and the growth part of it that is the excitement. But you kind of get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm kind of bored. What else? Like, let me go do something else and something that I have more passion for. And like you said, there's an altruistic component there where you know that you can serve and grow the industry with the software. And first of all, I've never heard anybody talk about having people do blog entries as a training mechanism for sales, customer service. I think that's
if
brilliant.
you do one a day, right? If you have the person focus on, hey, you have to do one a day at minimum, and that's their whole task for the day. And this is a new person that you're paying, and you're worried that what if they work here for 2 weeks and I wasted my money? Well, 2 weeks into it, they don't work out. Maybe once they get to the phone part, they suck or whatever. Like it didn't work out. They don't like the job. You still got 10 blog posts. Those 10 blog posts are going to bring you a couple customers every month, probably for the rest of your business career. Worth it alone.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, just like they say, if you have to anytime you have to teach something, you have to learn it first. And so essentially a blog entry is a teaching mechanism by which they have to tell other people about that. I think that's super, that's super interesting. Did you target Southern California specifically because of did you do market research to say, hey, if I'm going to do tint, I want to do a place, I want to try to grow it here, or obviously you could have picked either Florida or California. You've got or Arizona, right?
It was a factor of where I lived.
Okay.
I lived at the time in Marina del Rey, so which is Los Angeles. It's Santa Monica, same area. So it was just a matter of where I lived, and we quickly grew just because we were yes people, right? And we were marketing, so people can find us. We did quickly grow. All the way down to San Diego, all the way up to, we did jobs in San Francisco, but maybe, Santa Barbara would be our real point. And the way we were able to manage that growth was, again, coming back to the software, we were able to employ installers who could live in an area and not have to really come to our location, but once every week or 2 weeks to maybe swap out some film, where the typical method of a flat glass company is you're showing up at the shop to find out what job you're doing, you're picking up the film, and you're having to go back there, which obviously limits the perimeter of where you can cover. But no, there was no market research whatsoever.
So, well, that's good. But it seems like it feels like it worked out for you. Okay. But so you actually had installed, and were these employers or they were kind of 1099 subcontractors? How did you treat these guys? I realize it may have changed over time, but
it did. So, the first inkling is usually W-9s, and sometimes that's the case, but when people are working for you every day, that's not a W-9.
Yeah.
So, they became employees, and we had a mixture of pay rates. Most of the time, as crazy as it may sound, we would get an installer and we'd say, send us your rates. And we would ask them for their rates. And we would get, because in flat glass, it's like, hey, I charge this per square foot. If it's, like solar, if it's security, it's this. If it's small panes, it's this. If it's ladder worker, there's an upcharge, and minimum per trip is this. And you'd get their rates. And most of the time it was kind of because their rates would correlate with their skill level. Some people's rates were higher than others, and that's what it should be. I think that was something that really worked for us because we did have installers at different skill levels and different rates, as opposed to telling them this is what we pay, choose to take it or not. And then we even had a couple installers that were on a salary because they said, look, I kind of want my 9 to 5. I don't really want to do a lot of square footage. And that's what it is. And those were on salary. So that being flexible on how we paid and then scheduling the jobs according to what they wanted to do, I think is another big reason why we kept our installers, which can be a challenge.
Yeah. Any employees for sure. And when you set those, so you had your prices set high enough already to make sure there was enough meat on the bone, so to speak, in order to hit those numbers?
And we were exactly. So we were almost always the most expensive company bidding on the job. And I'm talking about, if we were bidding a job at $12 or $13 a square foot, it was not uncommon for them to get a bid at $4 a square foot. Like that drastically difference in pricing. However, we answered the phone really quickly. We were happy to talk to them. confirming with their questions with absolutely and my pleasure. We were getting out to their house in a day or a couple days when other people might say, send me the measurements yourself. We were showing up in a wrapped vehicle. We had a folder with a beautiful presentation that they kept that had our insurance and our W-9. And, you know, we were doing the follow-ups. We even used to send them we had custom gift cards that we made, or greeting cards rather, that we would send that would say like, hey, you know, and we'd handwrite them like, hey, and the admins would do this as well. Hey, so-and-so, you know, we appreciate the opportunity to earn your business. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And it had the owner's business card, like from the owner, right? Because they met with a consultant or whatnot. All accumulate to why somebody's going to pay you more, because it's easy to say like, oh, be the highest bidder. Well, yeah, but you'll also maybe get none of the jobs if everything else doesn't align with why they're going to want to pay you that premium for your service.
Right.
So the margin was there, and the margin has to be there for marketing too. We ran a ton of Yelp ads back in the day. Our Google ad budget reached $30,000 a month just in Google ads at one point. We were running Google ads to our website, a sub website, and our Yelp page. So we would be the three Google ads, the top three. I mean, we were getting crazy with it just to try and see, hey, how much business can we scoop up? Because the more business we scoop up, the less business our competitors have to, you know, keep afloat, meaning we can have their installers. I mean, again, the plan was take over the world at any cost. So yeah, the margins have to be there to be able to execute, I believe.
Well, and that makes sense, because if you're already at that point, then it would be rare for a new installer to come in and give you a number. First of all, they're probably going to shoot it a little bit low if they're trying to get the job, you know, with you. It would be hard for them to give you a number where you're just like, that's ridiculous. You're more expensive than what we charge per square foot, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and of course there's those ridiculous people out there, but for the most part, like, I just feel like people want, like the ridiculous people probably aren't a good fit to begin with. And, you know, you just want the people who want consistency. Look, they just want to get the work. They want to make, you know, fill up their day, make a lot of money, and have consistency in their work, knowing that when October comes around, November comes around, December, it's going to maybe slow down a bit, but it's still going to be very acceptable. And knowing that when they can't work because they have an obligation, that's their freedom, and knowing that they're going to also be able to have a family and not be expected to work till 9 p.m. because we got the job and we need the money. It's not going to be a scenario like that. It's like, hey, don't worry if you don't want to work. Like, we have other people, not in a bad way. That's a company.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And be able to have that, that is what helps keep, like you said before, you got to have you want to be a fun place, a good place for the person to work. And so having that is one of the things that probably prevents, you know, one of the things that in the detailing industry that's really common, it may be common in the tint and flat glass industry also, is, you know, you train up someone, you get them working, you see the systems, and then next step, I'm going to go work for myself and do this for myself.
Sure.
But if there's more barrier of entry for that employee, either emotionally or, you know, physically or business wise, if it's harder to go out on his own than it is just to stay, then he'll stay. Right. And
one of the ways that we really drove that home, because that is a very, very key point, is, you know, the common practice is you hire a flat glass installer, and oftentimes they'll use their own vehicle, and they'll charge you a per mile rate or per whatever it is rate to use their own vehicle. And we didn't want to be paying people to use their own vehicle. Every installer instantly had a wrapped van. That van was full of film. In our office, we had, like, where they would pick up and drop off the film, we had all the tools they could need, all the scraper blades they could need. We had fresh uniforms if they wanted to grab a new shirt. We had drop cloths. We had everything. And they had an iPad, and their job essentially was look at the iPad, go to do the job, and, you know, do this, put the, you know, complete it in the app, take pictures and so on, and they would get paid. And, you know, you're taking them out of their own vehicle with all their tools and so on. You're giving them more of a normal life. Whereas if, like, they're doing it in their own vehicle, like, yeah, what's the difference between doing it for you or doing it for themselves? It's kind of the same thing, but you take away the inconsistency of the jobs as well. You take away the stuff that they don't like doing, like having to maybe sell the job. They just want to put their headphones on and install. And, you know, you provide them with the tools, you make them reliant on you, but in a symbiotic way, like, that actually is appreciated, not, you know, you're not chopping their legs off. You're just making it a pleasurable job.
Yeah. Yeah. That way they can go do their job. They make good money, probably the same as, and not have the headaches that you have when you're running the company. Right. Like
100%.
that's, I think a lot of people don't know how, don't realize when they get into it that it's not just a matter of, hey, go slap this on the, go put a coating on a car, go slap some film on glass. That's not what makes it. This episode is brought to you by Detailer's Roadmap. Hey, spoiler alert, that's us. We all know you need a kick-ass website in order to be successful with your business. The good news is at Detailer's Roadmap, kick-ass websites, that's kind of what we do. With the latest performance, designs, and SEO strategies, Detailer's Roadmap is your one-stop shop to be successful on the web. And don't forget, we have the best support team in the industry. Whether you're an existing partner looking to improve your lead generation or you need a brand new website, Detailer's Roadmap is here to help you be successful on the web. So go to detailersroadmap.com/success and get started today. That's detailersroadmap.com/SUCCESS.
But, and to that point, I think a lot of times owners make the mistake of putting those headaches on their employees.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about it. There's no reason to talk about your marketing strategy. Well, okay, let me back up. In my opinion, and the way I ran my culture, there's no reason to tell the company's problems or the company's goals that don't affect them specifically to them and lay it on them. It's not their problem. And if you start to kind of put your problems on your staff, if you put the business's problems and they get to kind of absorb it, hear it, put it in their mind and feel it, then you're giving them the downsides of a business without the upsides of the business.
Yeah, and that becomes kind of a corporate culture, right? You need to have that corporate culture of positivity. And
Right.
and unless, to your point, unless you're like grooming someone to be in management, right? Like then you can maybe spoon feed that information, but in a positive learning way. And I think that almost speaks to this, I'm your boss, but I'm your good friend and all of that. And it really, that's why that's important to kind of keep those lines a little more, less blurred. Because I don't want to, just like I shouldn't be griping to you about my wife and kids, I shouldn't be griping to you about how we're going to have a hard time hitting payroll this month.
Right. Because saying something like that, what does that do to, like, what kind of insecurity, what kind of fear?
Yeah.
Like, you instantly go, okay, what's my plan B? I need to plan for myself. I could do this better. If we all have issues and problems in business, but like, if your staff knows that, and maybe some of those issues they think they know the answer to, it's very easy for them to start thinking, well, maybe I'm smarter than this guy. Maybe like I can do it better. Do you know what I mean? Or whatnot.
Yeah.
And you mentioned positivity. That's another one where, talking bad about a customer, never good. Being annoyed, never good. Never, like zero. Because like and I'll give you a usable example. When our admins would reach a phone call and they're like, hey, like this person's super upset because like so-and-so happened. My reaction was always like, oh, no problem. Give me the phone. I'll handle it. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? And blah, blah, blah. And like, letting your staff know and showing it in how you handle it and letting the customer know, we're going to take care of this. Don't worry about it. We're going to make this right. Whatever it is. Like, and there's extreme examples out there that happened. And it's like, yeah, we're going to make that right. It's not a problem. And when you relieve that fear and that stress from your staff, I think that's something that they're not love. Like, they don't love the idea of taking that on their own. They're like, this is great, and then it also, you don't build that like, wow, this is a big problem. It's like, no, this is an easy thing. You can actually do it yourself because see how easy that was. We just solve whatever the issue is. Don't worry about it. Just solve it.
To teach them that, first of all, you get some of the most loyal customers that are pissed off customers at first, right? Like the way that you handle that conflict, because most people understand that this is a business. These are people.
Right.
Things just go wrong. Like things just happen. Somebody has a bad day or something, whatever. And so being able to solve that problem really goes a long way. So we do a lot of stuff in the detailing industry, and we've talked about kind of this, and it can get me in trouble a little bit, but detailing has a relatively low barrier of entry, right? Like you're not performing brain surgery. We're not curing cancer. Is the tint and flat glass world similar?
Very, very, because you can, just go buy film. There's companies that just sell film with there's no barrier. Just walk right in. They're local. In LA, there's more than probably, they're scattered throughout the country. But yes, you can just go buy film. And if you can install it and you can get there and you can sell the job, you've got it. And, Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist and, it doesn't take much to just install film. It takes much to install film really well. But just as detailing, right? Like somebody who's just starting off at detailing and there's no barrier to entry, they're not going to be as great as somebody who's experienced. So there's a low barrier to entry there. But, the thing that I feel like is very prevalent in our society is wanting a great service, wanting consistency, wanting quick and a great job and so on. So that lack of barrier to entry, I feel like it's great if you're getting into the industry. And if you're in the industry, it's nothing to even worry about or think about. New people getting the industry. It's not, you're in business. Like, what business do you expect to have a monopoly in?
Right. Yeah.
Like, if you're a grocery store, do you expect to be the only people selling food? So like, if you're a Chinese food restaurant, there's going to be other Chinese food restaurants. And like, if you're a food cart, it'll be another food cart. So like, you have to be the best at what you do, and you have to be able to at least provide a great service if you're going to look for that premium. And you can be mediocre at what you do too and run a mediocre business. Nothing wrong with that. That's the thing too. That's where I go back to something, I want to touch on real quick, is back to where I said, know what you want your business to look like, because your business may just be you in your home garage if that's allowed in your city. And that's okay. Don't think that there's one roadmap to growth that you have to do, because as times change, industries change, and the economy changes, you're going to see businesses fall at all levels. And it's not about reaching a certain type of business. It's about accomplishing what you want out of your business, whatever that is.
Yeah. And really enjoying it, right? Like there's I don't think when people say, hey, I want to, oh man, he got a $3 million a year business. Well, I don't think most people realize what the difference between a $250,000 a year business, $1 million a year, 3, 5, 10, like what, like it's not as easy and great as it sounds. Like you put systems in place to manage that and to mitigate the risk and frustration and all that. But yeah, that's, a $3 million a year business isn't for everybody.
Right. There's people with businesses that gross $800,000 a year that make more profit for themselves than businesses that gross $2 million a year. It's probably a lot of them, like a ton of them. So certainly it's a different type of business. And if that's exciting, go for it. And if it's not, and you don't want to do that, that's not like the grass isn't greener necessarily.
Yeah. I saw a post the other day, that a little meme that said something like, there are 100 times more 6-figure businesses and happy owners than there are 7, 8, and beyond. Like there's so many more of those smaller quote businesses. And I think that's a good point for people to realize, is that, if that's your goal and you have the drive, knowledge, and skill set to make that happen, then definitely go for it.
I think the most common, like maybe complaint as a business owner, I'm curious your feedback, but it's probably, I don't want to install all day.
Yeah.
I just don't want to be installing all day. And really, like, if you don't want to be installing all day, you have to hire an installer. And if you probably it's going to bring you back to your pace, like how you structure your finances of the whole company, because potentially you were probably, being paid as the installer and the employee. And once you start paying the installer as the owner, rather, the installer and the owner. And once you pay an installer, you're not making installer money anymore. So now you're like, well, now I can't afford to do that, because and that fundamentally is just something that you have to look at, and you have to go, well, each job has its own pay. If I'm going to do multiple jobs, I can take the pay. But if I want to be able to put somebody in that position, I can't also expect the pay for the installation as well.
Right. So that dictates your math, kind of the business math. If you say, okay, well, I want to do $250,000 a year, but I'm okay with doing all the installations, or 100,000 or 150 or whatever, depending on where you live. But if I say, well, I want to do that, but I want to make, $150,000 a year, well, that may mean you need to do $600,000 a year in order to afford the staff and the installers and everything else, right? And all the overhead.
And that working backwards is part of just envisioning what you want and trying to figure out how to get there, right? If you know what you want to get, I want to make $250,000 a year. Okay. And in the next 5 years, I want to get to that point. Well, you're not going to do that by doing 200,000 in sales. You're not going to do that by doing 300,000 in sales. So I have to do, maybe 500 or 600 if I'm the installer. Maybe I have to do 1 million if I'm going to hire somebody else. And, that can kind of help figure out what you need for your company and how to get there. And just knowing, not the end point, because no one wants to think about the end, but at least maybe like 5 years out, I believe, and then trying to just connect the dots. The dots should be almost obvious if you know where you want to get to how to get there. And then executing it's the hard part, but connecting the dots, knowing the dots, I think is just a critical part of planning. And without that, I feel like it's really tough if you don't.
Yeah, you're just kind of making crap up, right? Like you don't build a business on hopes and dreams. I mean, there's a little bit of hopes and dreams involved, but that's the beginning. You got to actually have the nuts and bolts to get it done. I have, if I look over here on my wall, I have multiple brands, and I literally have a Q1, 2, 3, and 4 revenue goal for each brand. So, and then it gets to the total and all that stuff. And so having that plan and knowing what 2024 should look like, then I can evaluate it in March. Well, this brand's not doing, what I wanted it to, or this, let's just say this part of my business is not doing what I wanted it to. Do I adjust what I think it can do, or do I change the tactics, or do I move on and concentrate in other things? If you're running a business and you have tint and flat glass and detailing and coatings and all these things as one, you may say, well, this part of my business is performing like crap, and this other part of my business is doing exceptionally well. Maybe I need to put more focus on those parts of the business.
And spending a few minutes every day is like on how did the day, like as like a detail shop or as a tint shop, knowing how did my day look? Why did it look that way? Oh, it was a really good day. Why? Oh, because we had 2 Teslas that were $1,000 tickets, and then go, okay, well, how do I get more of that? How do I do 2 Teslas with $1,000 tickets tomorrow, or every day, or every other day, or twice a week instead of once a week? And going day by day to me is the most like consumable way. I think like maybe most common might be month by month with their like bookkeeper or accountant. And I'm just saying, even as a numbers person, like for myself, and like being very interested in it, looking at the numbers every month with an accountant and like a P&L and so on doesn't give me close anywhere near the like actionable insight to be able to steer the ship, because at best you're getting 12 of those a year, as opposed to like, I know how today went, I can make tomorrow better, or I know how this week went, let's make next week better. I know how next week looks, let's improve it before it ends so that it doesn't end as shitty as it looks, as opposed to looking at it month to month, or maybe not even that. So if they say like, if you have to count it to grow it. Having those numbers, like you said, up there can help you grow quarter after quarter. You're going to grow. And if you don't grow, you're going to know why. And if you're not counting it, it almost certainly does not grow.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I have a couple of retail brands. And so I get my, this is what you sold this week on Sunday morning. And then I can just kind of look at it and say, oh, well, I know what I did last week. I know what, and then I can say, okay, well, numbers were down this week. Can I figure out why? Well, it's post Black Friday, it's post Cyber Monday. Of course, your numbers are going to be down because your numbers were 80% higher in the beginning of the week. And even, what my August numbers look like as a shop versus what my December numbers look like as a shop. And I would guess that you're even able to run, reporting on individual. If you've got 3 admins that are doing all these things, you can say, well, this admin number 1 is performing at this level, this one, then this one. And then you can adjust whether it's training or staffing or scripting or whatever, right?
There is analytics for productivity, like you're saying. The very key analytics are actually at the very top of the Tint Wiz app, because they're just so important to me that everybody should see these as a business owner, they're just going to be there in front of everybody. Is 4 key stats essentially. How many leads came in? How entered into the system or through the lead forms automatically, whatever. How many opportunities / leads came in? How many turned into consultations? How many turned into installations? And how much you have this week scheduled in the books? And then it shows that compared to last week, and the month cumulative. And that daily, like, hey, we had 10 opportunities today, but we didn't schedule any installations, or we scheduled 2 when they're normally 6, or it's halfway through the day and we're doing better or normal. Those numbers in front of your face and your admin's face as you're working help you know when something's off balance, or when hey, why does the schedule look so low? We need to get that number up. So those are the very, very key analytics that I just think on a hourly minute basis you should be looking at if you're in that industry.
Yeah. And I think that's really cool, because I think if you look at most CRMs or CSMs or, our CMSs and all that, it's like reporting and data is hard to get to. Like right. There's usually some little thing buried where you hit, the report. I even think of like Shopify, I have to go dig and I get a little snapshot, which is great. Right. But if I want any more data, it takes me a while to dig in. But I love the idea that your app is actually showing critical data metrics right there, right? Because that's more important than, hey, I've got a 10 a.m. here, I got 11 a.m. here, I've got this, which is also important because of scheduling, but it's not helping you drive the business forward. This episode is brought to you by Detailer's Roadmap. Hey, spoiler alert, that's us. We all know you need a kick-ass website in order to be successful with your business. The good news is, at Detailer's Roadmap, kick-ass websites, that's kind of what we do. With the latest performance, designs, and SEO strategies, Detailer's Roadmap is your one-stop shop to be successful on the web. And don't forget, we have the best support team in the industry. Whether you're an existing partner looking to improve your lead generation, or you need a brand new website, Detailer's Roadmap is here to help you be successful on the web. So go to detailersroadmap.com/success and get started today. That's detailersroadmap.com/SUCCESS.
Right. And the same with, like you're saying, putting key analytics there, not putting too much to where it's overwhelming, and being really focused on what are the things that are going to drive the business forward. The rest, you can dig deeper when you want to dig deeper to. But the reality is, I don't think anybody goes into any analytics in any software all the time, nonstop, deep into analytics. Like, it's just not a thing. So, that,
unless you're a total data nerd.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
it's got to almost be mixed into your day-to-day, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love the idea. Yes, I mean, I have quarterly objectives, but I look at those things, daily, weekly, and to make sure I know what's coming in, what's going out, and how all that works. I had a marketing professor in college tell me, you don't need to be like 1,000% better. All you have to be is a little bit better than the competition. It sounds like that you were so much better than the competition that it made that exponential growth, possible, and not easy by any means, but you showed that this is an industry that does things this way. I choose to do business this way, and that value, and then you had value-based pricing, which is great. High touch, high price, right? You're going to pay for it.
Yeah. You're not going to be able to provide it if you don't collect the money for it. So like it's just what kind of service do you want to provide? And to me, that seemed like the hole in the market, or there was nobody doing it really, really right. Like, what often I feel like still happens is new companies start off, they're praying that they get any traction whatsoever. And they quickly find that they do great because they're hungry and they're answering their phones and they're on top of things and they're like in with the times and so on. But then what happens is years go by and they're so busy, they became the company that their customer originally came from and went to the new company. Like, I used to use so-and-so, but they don't get back to me anymore. They said it's going to be a month, or they don't return they haven't got a call back or whatnot. And, that's how companies end up customers end up trying somebody new, because they're not getting what they want from the company existing. So, being able to build that into your business, so it's not like, hey, we answer the phones fast when we're brand new and slow. It's like, no, that's part of the business. That's never not acceptable to answer the phones fast, because like it's so important and so on. So like building it into your business, being able to have a marketing budget to be able to run ads, because if you're running ads, people can see you. You're not saying, how do I get visibility? Ads, right? Spending money. Where's the money come from? It has to come from the markup of your previous customers.
Yeah. Well, and even at a $360,000 a year marketing budget, you know, if that's
Google
what
Ads, that's just Google Ads.
Google Ads plus everything else. I mean, that's only, you know, then your Google Ads budget is 10% of your annual revenue. That's not that much, right? Like, you know, if I can generate $3 million a year with that many Google Ads, then I want to spend as much as possible, as long as the return is there.
And that
I was going to ask you, go ahead.
No, that was the mindset.
Yeah,
it was working. We're going to keep doubling it down until it doesn't work anymore, and then scale back, or until we figure it out, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think there's tons of great information in here. Do you have, and you pretty much have already given it, but if you were to summarize one big piece of advice for people that are listening to this in terms of how to grow a great business, what would it be?
Don't be afraid to learn something new. Whatever you're trying to, you might be a great installer and you're trying to do other parts of the business. Don't set that mindset of, I suck at that. I don't know. I'm not good. I'm not tech savvy. I don't like talking to people, this and that. Just say, I'm going to get better at it. I'm going to learn it, and give yourself the space to get better and learn those things. And I feel like that'll make way to either you doing it or you hiring somebody to do it. But just don't have a closed mind. I think that open mind attitude is what makes some successful and others stagnant and at a dead end.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, how do we learn more about what you got going on with the app and everything that you have going on? Where do we find information about you?
Tintwiz.com, TINTWIZ.com. We're always in, you can go to support, live chat if you have any questions for us, but the website's full of everything about Tint Wiz. You can get started for completely free, and training, learn from there.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to be with us, and good luck in everything you're doing.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I appreciate the opportunity.
Head over to detailersroadmap.com and get your one-stop success solution today.